Well, hello, free people of the Rocky Mountain region, and welcome to this Free State Colorado video. Today, I'm joined by Natalie Menten, one of Jefferson County's Liberty leaders. Well, Natalie, I hope you are well, and thank you for joining me today.
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me on again.
Of course, this is kind of loosely the third part of our most recent video series talking about public persuasion. You've really dug up some great information here. I'm really excited to expose it. This is really the first time that it's publicly coming to light about what happened during this horrible, horrible COVID era in Jefferson County.
And all over the place. But Jeffco, we're going to give some details here, and who knows what else happened out there. So I encourage other people to become diggers into what government does. All right, let's go.
All right, let's rock and roll here. Let's see what we got. So as you can remember, people out there, 2020, 2021, a wild time here in Colorado. Of course, the authoritarian governor and public health officials across the state and counties across Colorado were pushing very strong restrictions on our ability to go to work, go to school, breathe freely, you name it. It was a rough time. A lot of people remember it, but something that doesn't really get talked about too much is all the protests. I mean, people were fed up. People were tired. People were fed up of this COVID stuff, especially the longer it went on. So, think it started in March 2020. By the time we get to kind of that fall 2021, when some of the more stuff started coming out, people were fed up, weren't they, Natalie?
Yeah, it was, first started and everybody was maybe willing to buy, it's going to be X amount of days and X amount of days. And all of a sudden we know we're in months and months and months of this stuff with tremendous impact on the economy, the restrictions, a lot of different things. People very frustrated. So yeah, there were protests occurring regularly the longer it went on, and the more the public was becoming very upset on how it was impacting them with their business, the regulations, the change in rules. The governor with the emergency orders, health departments taking things into making decisions that affected our lives. So yeah, it was something that would be not forgotten in history for a long time. It won't be forgotten, that's for sure.
This is a photo from protests outside of the Capitol building down in Denver. We
Mhm.
also have a picture here of some other protests in Jefferson County specifically. There were some really big protests, both for the county health building, but also in Jefferson County Public Schools. Parents were really unhappy that the schools were closed, that these kids were falling behind in with their education. So this is one of those pictures there from a Jefferson County public education protest that happened back then as well.
Yeah, and that is something I probably didn't realize the impact of as much without having kids in schools. But what the parents were going through was, substantial. So those protests were numbered by the people concerned about the business. Um, the true treading upon our adult choice and the amount of restrictions costs. So people have, I think, forgotten a little bit. So I'm glad we're entering into this discussion with that background about how upset people were.
Here's a aerial view. You can see here the little Jefferson County logo kind of in that right center of the screen for you there. But yeah, this was a protest outside of Jefferson County, the public building there. So, I mean, people were upset. I mean, it was massive protests. I mean, people were fed up. They were tired of it. They didn't want to continue this because it had gone on too long. People were just said enough is enough. Let's move on with it.
Yes.
And then here's you, Natalie, back then,
Yeah.
holding
Yeah.
up some signs.
Yeah. And this was, months into this thing. I mean, it was getting to the point where, again, the choice, not mandates. And the government just didn't seem to be letting up on this, even though, uh, well, I don't want to stick too long in this, but yeah. And you're going to see in the second here the contrast of these positions that I had taken. So at that time, um, when COVID started, I was on the RTD board. And certainly that had impact. We had bus drivers, train drivers that were out, and there was a shortage of supplies when this started up. Again, this is spring of 2020. So on this next slide here is just a little bit of history on where I've changed, and during the circumstances. Those pictures that we just looked at were months into these restrictions that had taken place. Leading into it, though, I was RTD board director, and there were bus drivers that were, having a lot of flow under the bus and did want to protect themselves with a mask. bandana, whatever it may be. Problem is, you couldn't get supplies. Getting elastic, shockingly, if people remember, that you couldn't. There were people paying an arm and a leg for what little bits of elastic were out there for masks. Couldn't get the N95 masks. There was big shortage supply. Plus, at the same time, the government had shut down manufacturing, so that created complications within itself, right? And so, as RTD director at that time, we knew we couldn't get masks for the bus drivers and the train drivers. And I led a charge, which I thought would be, a big thing, but turned out to be a really big thing. We sewed masks for all the bus drivers and train drivers, allowing them to come in and get them, which meant scrounging up materials, since you couldn't get elastic. As I'm showing in this picture here, came up with this design where you use dowel rods and you were able to use these like supersized rubber bands to go around the head and the neck for the drivers who wanted to wear those. Again, at the end of the day, eventually, it was too much of the mandates. It was not choice. And looking back, the required vaccinations to keep your job. I mean, a lot of bad liberty takings occurred during that period of time. So anyway, I just wanted to show, I'm not trying. We're going to go talk about contracts and public persuasion, and I'll stop there. And I don't even like looking back at that picture that's there, but I wanted it in there just to show both sides. So let's move on. I don't have to look at that one anymore.
No, definitely. But I think it's an important point to notice. Like most people at first when it happened, we're like, okay, what's going on? Let's see what happens. Let's try and do the right thing. Everybody wanted to do the right thing. People didn't want to get sick. People wanted to help each other. We wanted to try and get through this. And then as it went on and on and on, kind of the facade faded. And, you change your opinion on some of the at least maybe not change your opinion, but as they clamp down and they continue these restrictions, you had to say something about it. And I think a lot of us were in that same boat for sure.
Well, and let me be very clear. I was never in the boat to mandate masks. I can remember we had one telephone town hall and people were talking about the masks, and they wanted something about a reporting system and where to report if somebody wasn't wearing a mask. And I literally said, sorry to anybody who has this, well, I won't say the name, but basically what it says, I don't want any of those X name. And if you remember at that time, there was a common name people used for somebody who was reporting. I said, I don't want any of that, because for me, it was about choice from day one. So I want to be very, very clear on that. Would I have participated in creating 2,000, helping create 2,000 masks, recruiting the volunteers, finding the materials, coming up with a design, getting everybody set up, and then going out to all the different departments, the bus, like maintenance departments. I took the masks out there and I would spend hours just getting people like set with their masks, the drivers, the employees, because we had different styles and some people liked this one, or some people couldn't take this thing. So we had like 3 style masks. And so, I got into it with helping them, but as to a mandate on the public, totally opposed. And I just wanted to be really clear on the record, and it was my fault for being unclear about that in the first place. Sorry.
Oh no, and I didn't expect that. I didn't expect that you ever would have supported a mandate. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
really trying to paint that picture for people to kind of pull them back to those years, back to 2020, 2021,
Yeah.
when there was so much uncertainty, there was so much questions about what to do, and unfortunately, the government and a lot of these bureaucrats and politicians were able to get away with more than they would have otherwise because people were scared and people didn't know what they did, what to do, and that kind of leads us into what Jefferson
And
County.
I want to pause there for just 1 second, because this reminded me at that same time, while I was doing that type of thing, I was reached out to as a leader to help persuade the public to comply. So, I'm doing the mask thing and that's a choice and drivers want, but I was reached out to say, Natalie, are you willing to make a public statement and sign on to this to tell people to comply? And I was like, no, not, forget that. And I forgot about that until this very moment, which then leads into what we're going to talk about right now. So I just staged it for you here. Go ahead.
Oh, definitely no, but people were getting tired of it. People didn't know what to do, but there was so much uncertainty, so many questions. These bureaucrats and these politicians, they just had so much power at the time. People were willing to go along with mandates. People were willing to do things without questioning because of the fear, because of the questions and the uncertainty. And this leads us into what Jefferson County and other public health offices did across Colorado. The metro area was really bad. I think most of us can remember, I was living in Jefferson County at the time, and it was a scary thing. Not only was COVID scary, but it was really the more scary thing was what the government was trying to do with this newfound power that they had. So tell us a little bit about this contract, this COVID messaging consultant that Jefferson County Public Board solicited and hired.
Yeah. So we've talked about consultants before in public persuasion, and this is, like you said, Brandon, it's multi-part here that we're talking about. This came to my attention because somebody was really disturbed about the actual contract process, not as much about COVID. And this information came to me months ago. Took me a while to hunt up the information, but it comes down to Jefferson County, like perhaps some other governments, decided when they felt the pressure. I mean, you have the pictures. I mean, there were hundreds of people showing up at the parking lot, upset. Jefferson County Board of Health, here in late 2021, decided to go out and hire a consultant who was going to help massage the media and try to calm down the public at that point in time. Now, one should be wondering, first of all, almost all public governments have public information officers. So we've already got somebody on the payroll. If you want to create a public message, why would you go out and get a contractor to do that job when you think somebody that's their 8 to 5 job anyway, right? But Jeffco decided to put out a soft request, let's call it a soft request, for a contractor to go out and, as I said, massage the media, tell the public they were spreading misinformation, they needed to calm down, follow the rules, go along with it. It wouldn't be that much longer. How many times did we hear that, through it won't be that much, a couple more weeks, 3 more, it was what, 3 weeks, da, da, da. So things are at a boiling point. Jefferson Public Health, which is a board of directors, and they are appointed by Jefferson County commissioners. Let's be clear, Board of Health is like a child organization of a county. Well, this Board of Health appointed, they're not elected, they're appointed. They have the power of authority with contracts, etc. Decides they're going to hand some money to a contractor to do those things I described. After extensive public information requests, because they don't advertise or publish their contracts, come to find out there was, in fact, as been rumored, a contract with a company called PowerMap. PowerMap is owned by Alvina Vasquez. If you research Alvina Vasquez, she held a title with the 2018 Jared Polis campaign. She went out, connected with, there's 3 other partners with her, 3 other women, and they state themselves as a woman-run company. There was a contract with this PowerMap, and down on page 3 of this contract is pictured here. It notes that there's a subcontractor who's assigned to do this work, whether entirely or a portion of it, not entirely clear, and I'll explain more in a second. But that contractor is the person we've talked about multiple times with the Tabor pave the way for an election contract, and that's Ian Silveri. Ian Silveri, as a reminder, formerly head of Progress Now, worked at the state capitol, married to Congresswoman Brittany Pedersen, Congressional District 7. Ian was designated as a subcontractor by PowerMap in this contract. The total paid for it over a period of time, which was several months, so not even, I don't think, quite 6 months, definitely not a year, for several months, at about $18,750 per month. You'll see somewhere it was $20,000. The total paid was $131,250 for several months of work for a team to go out and tell the people to calm down over COVID after months and months and months of restrictions. And as I note there, unknown split on the contract money. So how much the main partners took versus Ian as a subcontractor, don't know. And if I went to request that public information, I suspect I would not be able to get it, even though that I should be able to get that information. So if you want to skip to the next one here, we'll talk a little more about this.
Yeah,
I'm trying to find
definitely.
what.
I was going to say definitely yes. I just wanted to point out I highlighted that little box at the bottom that shows September 3rd, 2021, just to give people that context of when this was happening in Jefferson County. But yeah, we'll go ahead and move on to the next slide.
Okay. Now, I mentioned in here that messaging contract is what this is about. This slide is just simply showing us this is a contract between the Public Health Department and PowerMap. And the authorized representative is more of the slide that we want to look at, is that we have Dr. Don Comstock, who was pretty well known, head of Jeffco Public Health Department as an employee. So not a Board of Health appointed director, but an employee. Ashley Severs, I think, administration, and Sherry Jean, who was a board member. So we got Comstock as employee, Sherry Jean as a board director. Those were the two to be dealing with Albina, who is a consultant representative. And shown as earlier, Ian Silveri is actually the subcontractor. Now, September 2021 is what you had noted on the previous slide. And as we were moving into that point of time, there were some other discussions going on. So was this merely a discussion about wear your mask, be quiet, keep your distance, or was there more things going on that perhaps the public wasn't completely aware of, some further plans? I mean, which was unbelievable because we'd already dealt with so many months of this. So go ahead, unless you got something to say on this one. Background, okay, I'll keep going on this. Here's the thing is, this contract was eventually handed out, as we've noted, to PowerMap. Now, typically with requests for proposals, which is called RFP, the governments would typically be on certain dollar amounts, or if there is competitive bidding, meaning there's not just one person in the world that provides a service. The normal process in many contracts is to put it out for bids, so the taxpayers get the best deal they can get. So the contractors are fulfilling whatever those goals would be within it. The problem here is this COVID communications contract was never advertised for public response, vendor response, to bid on it. Again, this was brought to my attention by somebody whose main concern was how this contract was handled, how the contract award was handled, I should say. So what I did here is, this illustrates in the picture what I did request in a CORA to the Public Information Department in Jefferson County itself, because they're the parent organization. Please send me a copy of the executed contract, which I did get that. There was a contract and then an amendment to extend. Secondly, when was this request for proposal advertised to get those responsive bids? The response is in that bottom part of the picture there. And actually, I had to follow up on this because it was a typical, let me make sure. Yes, this was one of them. Sorry, I want to make sure because there were many of them. In the original response, they'd given me the contract, but they neglected to answer about part 2. Now, when I lay out these CORA requests, I'll just note, I try to make them very simple and not a lot of stuff, because I just want the stuff back. I also don't want to get charged for a public information request. So here I am requesting just 2 simple things, and the response didn't include item number 2. So I had to follow up with them and say, hey, by the way, you didn't answer number 2. So the response is on the bottom there, which says, apologies again for my delayed response. I've reached out to the team designated to gather these details. Unfortunately, there is no responsive materials. And then, can we help you with anything else? What that means is they never put it out for bid. Now, why was this important? Well, the person who was upset with this process indicated at the county attorney's office, they had told the public health department they should put it out for bid. So why didn't the public health department do that? That raises more questions, which created more threads for me to have to look up. Now I hopefully go to the next one here. And this, hopefully the next slide is the one that's got further information. So I had a series of email requests to the Public Information Department at Jeffco, which then was copied to the Board of Health because they are the main, what somebody would call the record custodian. They had the emails, all that stuff. So because I had this very specific information as to the history here, I'm just going to read these off because one, it might be just too small for some people to read, especially if they're on their phone. But it starts with, and so first one was looking for the email titled the Public Health Communications Contract that was dated August 21, 2021, approximately late in the morning, from Kelsey Hall, who works in the county attorney's office, to Dr. Comstock and Sherry John, with a list of possible companies to choose for his communication service and outreach about the public health order. What they said in this case is the email did not exist at all. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. My information that I've been told is Sherry John uses a business address versus a public health department address. And I would suspect that there's a fair case that perhaps she did not, her email server was not included in the requested record. I really think that document probably exists. The second thing I asked for was, again, the same email thread. I shouldn't have even had to have break this out into pieces like this, but because of their resistance to providing me with public information and using a shield of what ultimately you'll see here, attorney-client privilege, I was denied many of these records. So the second one is just titled, again, same thread. I mean, they should be able to search if they know it's there, right? Even the first one, they said no responsive document. Again, Public Health Communications Contract, dated again August 21, 7 a.m. this time, sent from Sherry John. She's a former state senator. We're going to go into this in a minute. Former elected official. She's appointed to the Board of Health, Board of Directors. She sent an email to Kelsey Hall in the county attorney's office, Don Comstock, head of public health department, discussing a meeting with Ian Salveri. So we've got the tie right there beyond the contract. This one was denied because it's confidential attorney-client communications and withheld pursuant to the cited case of Denver Post versus University of Colorado from 1987. All right, so they're denying me that record. But what they're saying is also, unlike, let's say number one's response is true, no responsive document. That means it does not exist in the world, right? It's not there, not there. Number two, though, their response is confidential attorney-client communication. So they're confirming that is there. And I'll address that in a moment. Next one, third one, gonna get the same answer here, but this is a different email exchange a little later in the day, or sorry, the day prior. An email dated August 20, 2021, 3:50 p.m. in the afternoon, from the Kelsey Hall County Attorney to Sherry John on the Board of Health to Don Comstock, head of the Public Health Department, pertaining to a proposal for public health communication services. Again, can't get the record. They're confirming, yep, something exists, but it's attorney-client communication. August 30, 10 days later. So this bid is going out, but it's a soft bid because it was never put out on a public forum where vendors would apply to get the contract. So there's a, like, what, calling somebody up on the phone, hey, by the way, there's, you know, this COVID contract, you want a piece of that? You know, that's how it was spread around. You want to, maybe I'd be in a little smart alecky, but you know what, they pushed me to that point. So let's skip number 4. Same thing, it was but an email between this time now, August 30th, Don Comstock, again, head of public health department, to Kelsey Hall, who is like, she's actually an associate county attorney, and Kim Sorrells, who is the top county attorney pertaining to this public communications contract. Again, denied the record, confidential attorney-client information. Last one I asked for because it's getting tired. This is September 1. This is getting close to where they're going to award it about this communication bid, I suspect. Would love to know that information. Again, denied the record, confidential attorney-client communication. At the end of the day, attorney-client privilege. Who is the client? You look at these, any of the public departments out there, who should be at the top tier of the organization, right? The chief, the client, the customer, whatever it may be. That's the taxpayer, right? So you've got a county attorney's office, shielding county business, and the public's not able to get it. And I actually not releasing this for the very first time. I started to ask these questions at a Jeffco Commissioner's public hearing, and just to get the basis. Okay, let me understand. How do you oversee the public health department and what occurs over there? What is your real responsibility when contracts are getting da-da-da? And then afterwards, I was talking to one of the county commissioners and their PI, public information officer, and said, here's the deal. I have put in public information requests to confirm whether the public health department did not put a bid out as recommended by legal department to put it out for bid. And then there were some meetings and conversations about special people being invited to apply for the contract, and you won't give me the emails. So I have to basically assume that what I've been told is correct, because unless you come back and share some records with me, what else am I left to believe? There are way too many breadcrumbs to believe this was all above board. And so let's go to the next one now, unless you want to chime in, because I've just been going. And maybe I should take a sip of grape juice.
Well, Natalie, just pointing out, for people out there, Colorado has great open records laws. So, Natalie, you filed these Colorado Open Record Act requests, CORA requests with the county of Jefferson County, trying to get this information, trying to really get some truth to what happened during this time, this September 2021, August 2021, when this $100,000 contract was awarded to this communications company all about COVID messaging. And they're not giving the information out. I mean, they're not giving the information out to the public about how this contract was awarded. Was it above board? I mean, that is definitely one of the big questions here. Was it a fair contract process as it should be? I mean, this is taxpayer money. Presumably, this is where it's coming from, is from the Jefferson County voters, or maybe from federal grants or somewhere else, who knows? But nonetheless, these are supposed to be stewards of the public trust, stewards of Jefferson County. And here they are potentially, we don't know for sure because they won't release the emails, but making backroom deals with these politically connected consultants, just like we're seeing now in 2024. The same people back in 2021, folks, are doing it again here in 2024, this time during COVID, to try and, persuade the public to go along with what the county public health is doing. So I just wanted to reiterate that, and here you are doing this great investigative work, really digging in to what the county did back then and trying to bring to light some of this suspicious activity, I would say.
Yeah, and I gotta, the amount of cost per hour to get public information just increased July 1, and now it's about $40 an hour to get information. You get the first hour complimentary, all right? Give them big kudos for that. But it gets expensive. And I remember I was doing a bunch of cores on them at that time, and they were going to charge it, and they told me like $215. And I was so mad. I went out there with all ones. And it was like 3:45 in the afternoon, because I figured they close at like 4. And I get there and I've got these like bank envelopes like stuffed with $215 $1 bills. And then they weren't there. They were closed. They said they were there, but it didn't look like any lights were in that room behind there. So I left. But anyway, it gets expensive to get this stuff. There were other records. Supposedly, it was COVID, so maybe that's their excuse. But they met with Sherry, Dawn, and Ian were supposed to meet at a local park, Adam Brook Park. I'll name it. I mean, there were details. There was There were multiple people. People were aware of what's going on in the attorney's office. People were aware of what's going on in the public health department. There was these teams that met with Alvina. I asked for the email exchanges. I think it was part of the one they told me it was going to be a bunch of money. I was like, I'm not going to pay for this information. So this is part of what I'm sharing here is part of it. I don't know the rest, and I'm tired of digging for it. There's like your first screenshot. I mean, I got one shovel, and then what I had to do is recruit volunteers to get around it because I did need a certain amount of it. So I had like a log going, like, oh, this person needs to request this part and this part. So giving away secrets here, but you know what? We got to fight back. And if that means you got to recruit people, fine. I always see a silver lining to it because when I'm recruiting people and saying, hey, will you request this one document so we don't have to pay? They're learning how to do a Quora, and that's a big benefit. So I've grinned about that because it's a double-edged sword for them. That's like, okay, you can charge me. All right, I'll teach how people do Quora. So we'll get the information. Anyway, all right, we move on now.
Let's go to the next slide here. So you got a House Bill 1411 COVID-19 funds allocation for behavioral health. Concerning the allocation of money the state received from the Federal Coronavirus Relief Fund for Behavioral Health Sciences. The act appropriates money from the CARES subfund in the general fund to the Department of Human Services, the Department of Public Health and Environment, the Department of Higher Education, the Department of Law for behavioral health programs and services that were not accounted for in the state budget most recently approved in March 2020. So there you go. So this is, and of course, who is on this bill, Natalie?
Well, one of the sponsors actually two of them, Brittany Pedersen, then state senator, now Congresswoman CD7, and then Tracy Kraft-Tharp, then state representative, now Jeffco County Commissioner. And this slide's really just about who knows where all the money went. I mean, their governments are still spending I think they've spent out the CARES money, but the ARPA money, there's a ton of governments, they're still spending this money, and that was all so much borrowed money. That's our national debt just going up. And, they were meanwhile funding consultants to tell you that you were wrong and you shouldn't have choice. And which I got to say, you bring in like the whole my body, my choice thing, and you look at the sponsors, and I'm like, oh, come on, which way you want to have some consistency for the love of. All right. So yeah, I mean, they're pals. So yeah, we got Sherry John involved in these emails. She was the one I kept saying part of this email where I was denied. This is somebody appointed on our Board of Health, so can't not elected. You got her sitting on there. And what strikes me, because I wrote her, she was the one saying, I think more get rid of the, let's end the mask thing. But then when I see her being tied to a contracts like these, I just don't know what to think now. So this just was for those cozy relationships that Jeffco seems to really, really, really like.
Yep, tied together. Jefferson County's government, very tied into these Democratic legislators. It's a very cozy network of people with a lot of taxpayer money being shuffled between them. And so, this is September 2021. We're talking about when this contract was, you have Jefferson County reaching out to this consultant, connected Brittany Pedersen's husband, Ian Silveri, to obviously as a subcontractor, don't get, there. But nonetheless, big taxpayer money, over $100,000 going to these consultants to message to the public, to tell them information as the public's kind of seemingly becoming more restless, more skeptical of what's going on. And actually, back in 2021, I put out an article on freestatecolorado.com, just to fly over here. This is from November 2021. People can find this at freestatecolorado.com. There was a lot of concern at the time about vaccine passports. So in my mind, why did they need a political consultant? Why did they need these big contracts to get out there? What are they trying to convince the public of? I mean, this is November 2021. It's been going on since March 2020. The public's acquiesced and followed along since then. So why all of a sudden do they need this big, juicy contract to hire these communication consultants to message to the public? So this is what I wrote back in November 2021. This coming Monday, November 22nd, there will be a special public health board meeting of Jefferson County Public Health. Don Comstock, the executive director for Jefferson County Public Health, just last week was begging Jared Polis to institute a vaccine passport system across Colorado. And now Comstock is pushing a vaccine passport system for Jefferson County. On Monday at 11 a.m., the Jefferson County meeting will discuss a mask mandate, but it's much worse than that. Comstock's new mask mandate would contain an exemption for businesses with an approved vaccine passport system. So I took a screenshot here back in November 2021 from this draft that they had written. So this JCPHO 21-006 requiring face coverings in public indoor spaces. This is a draft. I'll read a little bit of it here. Individuals inside an approved, fully vaccinated facility whose owner or operator has submitted a request for and obtained explicit approval from Jefferson County Public Health for an exception or exceptions to this mask order as defined in the approved fully vaccinated guidance. So as you can see there, they were pushing this idea out there. This is when it was really getting scary for a lot of people, including myself, to say that they needed to have this compliance check, this vaccine passport system all across. So I was really trying to get people motivated to speak out back then, to show up on this Zoom call. So really bad news back then. I even have the emails for the Jefferson County Public Health Board back then, which, as you can see, Sherry John. So it all relates back to here. Here's the rest
Yeah,
of the board members at the
and
time, and then yeah,
and
go ahead,
then
Natalie.
note Greg's name because he'll come up in a second. So
Greg
because
Durenlu
he was the president or chair, I should say.
of the
So
Jefferson County Public
yeah,
Health Board.
you were doing a great job of covering this in this time, and this really covers a piece because as I was looking back, what was where was the flame burning at what level at that moment? I mean, you got not I want to keep saying Bighorn, but it was Power Map and then Silveri, hired in the month of September. They get on the job, they start to kick off, and now here in November, you got this vaccine passport discussion going on.
Definitely. There's the county commissioners. I was asking people to reach out to Tracy Kraft-Tharp, Andy Kerr, Leslie Dahlkamper. Fortunately, we'll still have these people in office at the same time. But it's these same county commissioners who appoint these people to the public health board and the executive director of public health, who are then pushing this vaccine passport system. And maybe they thought, speculating a little bit here, but maybe they thought people were going to push back. I wouldn't be surprised, to say that people were going to push back at this idea, because we were. I mean, here I am back then. This post on my website had over 4,400 views. So hopefully, some people are motivated. But just a link to the article that I linked to in the post. Here you go. Denver area public health directors call for Polis to order statewide mask mandate. Group also wants vaccine passports for indoor high-risk spaces. This is back on November 15th, 2021. So, just here we go. 2 months after they gave this contract to Ian Silveri's and Power Map, excuse me, I don't want to, they give this juicy contract to these contractors for messaging about what they're going to be doing in Jefferson County. It's almost as if it was planned, if you ask me. But these coalition of Metro Denver public health directors is calling on Governor Jared Polis to take steps beyond those taken Sunday to require masks indoors in public spaces for everyone age 2 and older. I mean, how insane was this back then, right? And then of course, you continue down here, and the big thing is the group is also asking Polis to issue a statewide order requiring vaccine passports be utilized in high-risk indoor settings not already covered by Sunday's order, such as bars, restaurants, gyms, among others. I mean, absolutely wild. Here's the actual letter, people. So we have the actual documents from November 2021 to Governor Jared Polis and the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, Jill Ryan, asking for vaccine passports and face coverings for all Coloradans. Now, who signed this? Who signed this letter to the governor at the time? There it is right there, folks. Don Comstock in November 2021, coming out saying, begging Jared Polis to institute these draconian measures that public was not happy with at all, as we noted with protests and other people reaching out and just the public outcry at the time. I mean, I know a lot of people watching this will remember that. But here we go. So, Natalie, is this why they needed this communications contract?
Yeah, the timing on it, I think you found a missing piece. I mean, as I was looking back and so many other threads, like what was Jeffco Public Health doing on Facebook? What were they saying at this point? I mean, I already said I'd been reached, as a leader to speak out and tell the public, do this, listen. But I think you found the missing piece. But where I jumped to in a big part here is, I mean, I'm looking at again the dollars. So that was Jeffco Public Health with 130 grand for just a few months of work, basically what we're going to say there. And then you've got these other ones. How much public money was spent on other consultants? Because I've seen there's, a dozen maybe of these firms that do this political messaging work. Maybe a lot more. I may be very naive on that, actually. How much was spent at this point in time, so many months into this deal, to try to tell people, don't worry, it's only a few more months and we're only going to ask one more thing of you. And the public consultant will tell you why it's okay.
Right. Yep. Let's hire a communications consultant with all their political dirty tricks to tell the public how they need to follow along with our orders, how they need to have a vaccine passport system, how they need to be wearing face coverings for their 3-year-old children in all public indoor settings if you don't have that vaccine passport. I mean, they were pushing this statewide at begging the governor. Here we go, Jefferson County Public Health begging the governor at the time. I mean, it's absolutely shocking to think that this happened, to think of where we were at the time. But there you go. I mean, there's so many connections here between what was going on in the public sphere and what was going on behind the scenes, which is what you've uncovered with these juicy contracts going out to this communication company that's politically connected, trying to pull same stunts now in 2024, this time to permanently take away our taxpayers' Bill of Rights in Jefferson County and permanently raise our taxes. I mean, these people keep getting away with these horrible, horrible actions, and the people, the public, the voters, they need to be made aware of this.
Well, and you just go to the big, these departments have public information officers. They have people, and they have, I would assume, some kind of a medical or, something to do. But contracts handed away to people whose political background is head of Progress Now, and Jared Polis's campaign manager. I mean, that's it. I'll stop, but I hope anybody listening to this would just agree this just doesn't even make sense. Besides the fact that just Jeffco's getting ready to put something on the ballot, claiming that they spent money wisely, but they can blow $130,000 on somebody with a PR background to go out and tell the public how basically be quiet, and then get to the media because they can have lunch and coffee and give them who knows what meat for sushi, I don't know, and tell them here's what to do and here's what to say and here's why our Board of Health knows what they're doing, and you, the media, should believe us. We're the public information officer. This is abuse of taxpayer money, frankly.
100%.
Besides the liberties and all of the other things.
Yeah, to add insult to injury here, not only are they infringing on our liberty, they're using our tax money to do it. They're trying to hire these consultants to manipulate and persuade the public to accept it, to go along with it, and to accept giving up more and more of our freedoms. It's absolutely criminal in my mind, in my opinion. And I would have to say, people, this is how politics really works. I mean, forget what they taught you in your high school civics class, if they even teach it anymore. This is how politics really works. 6-figure government contracts of taxpayer money being shuffled around the same group of people for the last 3-4 years, taking advantage of the system, awarding these contracts and secret backroom deals, meeting in parks like the mafia, outside of public purview, and trying to pull one over on the voters and laughing all the way to the bank.
Yeah. I and the thing is, think about it. Was when I was talking to somebody and said, well, just do it, maybe a search and see all the contracts that are under this certain name person. And I'm like, they would charge me an arm and a leg if I were to do a search on somebody, in light of the fact that, like, what I got was a scanned paper document in response to my quorum. I don't know that they're using optical character recognition, so they'd have to look through, I don't know how many documents. And then when it's then assigned, because they do this all the time, assign a subcontractor. Well, how are you going to go find the subcontractors? So that's why, number one, I'm just going to say at RTV, I help push this and in other senses, but And I'm not going to talk about my other little thing, but let's just say at this very moment, because I'm not ready to go into full details. But RTD is an elected official, and if I'm elected official again, one of my pushes will be is searchable contracts, not only for this transparency that needs to occur, but a variety of other things that I have had problems with when I've gone to search records. These things should be posted on the internet in a searchable format for the public to be able to get to. And again, anything that transparency, but it should be there for cost savings and efficiency. The more that you can encourage competitive bidding, I'm way off track here, but it only makes sense to be publishing things unless you just don't want to.
Unless you want to award it to your friends and backroom deals without public scrutiny, Natalie.
Yes, I realize
Well,
that's a lot of contracts. The taxpayer money is important. We see too many problems with how it's being spent when there isn't full, you know, documents
let's
there to see.
well, let's take a look at the next slide here. I know you have
Okay.
some more information,
Yeah.
some more digging that you did, Natalie. So let's see
Yeah.
what you found on your.
So, I got very few documents because it was all the attorney-client privilege. Well, finally, when it got like to the end, let's see, this was actually, I can't, this was September 3rd. Actually, this was towards the end where it had been awarded. That's why they would actually release it to me. Prior to that, they were not. Those other emails, right? So I'm missing 75% of the documents that I need because they won't give them to me. So this is from Greg Darren Liu, who, as you showed in that other slide, was at that time chair of the Board of Health. And it's an email to Joseph. He's in administration. I don't even necessarily say his last name, but Kelsey Hall, again mentioned many times here, county attorney's office, one of like a deputy district attorney, I think is the proper name, and Don Comstock, who we've now talked about many times. Greg saying to those three, great news. Thanks for all your hard work on this contract. And sorry for the crazy circumstances under which this contract has been initiated. I know the BOH, which that's Board of Health, doesn't usually get involved that part of things. So what he's saying is we had unusual circumstances. Board of Health got involved with a contract to a level that is not normally done. Then he goes on to say, because we got to rush it through. We got fire burning here. We've got people in the parking lot upset. I'm inserting there. I'm sorry, I was not actually reading for anybody who doesn't have their glasses on. Greg actually then, that was my insert. Greg continues to say, after saying the Board of Health doesn't get involved to this level usually, can you please forward either the contract or contract summary to the Board of Health as soon as you can, so we all have a chance to review before the meeting this afternoon. So rushing it through. And if you want to send the full contract my way, I could print off signature page and get my signature notarized today. After the meeting, scan it right back to you. I'm okay signing first. He's trying to push it through on a really rapid level because there is an urgency here to this. Maybe that's the reason they didn't want to put it out for bid. Maybe that's what they'd come back and say, no, we needed this person right away. That's why we didn't put it on BidNet and say, hey, all you consultants out here, especially those who, maybe have public health and media background, which I don't think these ones really did. We want to bid on it. What's the best deal for the taxpayer? But it doesn't seem like it. It seems like there's, again, too many weird connections here, especially with records being withheld. And I do understand negotiating something and maybe needing to not express. I mean, let's just say you're a government and you've got a contract and it's real low and you don't, well, let's say you don't want to give a competitor a reason to price it a certain way because they know the other one. You're going to want to work them together against each other. But at a certain point with something like this just, it smells bad. There's no other way to describe these records and the circumstances where enough people were upset and knew about this on the inside that they have been talking to people. And I happen to take it and say, okay, I'll dig into it. And here we go.
Yeah, I mean, possibly an improperly awarded contract, rush through. I have to think, my own 2 cents here. They had to probably already be thinking about this November order. I mean, that's 2 months later where they're asking the governor for vaccine passports across the state of Colorado. I'm sure they were coordinating with other Metro District public health agencies out there to try and coordinate this, push this together, and come up with their game plan. And I can only assume, I'm totally assuming here, don't quote me, but I have to assume they said, hey, we're going to need some public communications consultants to get this information out there, or to push to help alleviate some of that pressure we're going to get from the public. We need to be able to sell this to the public. So that's just my 2 cents. I don't know that that's connected, but the timing of it makes me really wonder.
Well, that even though I've talked to, or personally said repeatedly that were telling the people to hush up with this part of their goal, part of their scope of work, as it's called. The other part of what the role was of Power Map, therefore Ian Silveri, was to massage and message the media. And so what they were trying to do there is control or influence the messaging by our freedom, the press. So it was a two-pronged approach and very serious in doing that. Now, to really get the press on board, I think you maybe have a lot of legs with your statements there, Brandon, because to get the media lined up to be able to push, I mean, remember what some of the medias were so against the anti-maxers or whatever they called, and trying to get anybody of the media who perhaps have more of an open position, a choice position to steer them. That's a little bit concerning, actually, that the Board of Health is using our public dollars and claiming they don't have enough money to be able to try to manipulate the press. That's concerning.
Very concerning. And I was going to look up, I don't remember exactly when, but Ian Severi, he was a Denver Post columnist, and he was, I believe, a consultant to other media companies, a political consultant, one of those political commentators. So I have to assume there's some sort of connection there, but I can't necessarily prove anything. But let's continue on here.
So this is the invoices for Empower Map. Again, prior to you and the piece about the vaccine passport, I asked for their invoices from Power Map. That's a company that took the main contract and then subcontracted to Ian, and asked to see for their invoice, hoping to see some kind of detail. What were they actually doing for their roughly close to 20 grand a month? And the contracts here, just very disappointing. All it said was communications, December. What do we got? 18,000. Communications, January, 20 grand. Communications, February, 20 grand. October, that was when they started. That was when they were getting 18,750 a month. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars. And here's a public health department that had shut down business, shut down commerce, shut down to maybe somebody who was at that time earning 40,000 a year, and shut them down to where it was okay for them to work basically part-time. And an insult that the public health department thought it was worth 20 grand a month, which for somebody on a limited income might be half of their annual income, a third. And we're paying that to a mouthpiece who is going out trying to persuade the press and the public to do whatever it was. Maybe it's a passport, maybe something else. But the disconnect with handing away our money under a suspect contract process that then is, once exposed, the documents are shielded under an attorney-client privilege, saying it's more important to protect the government than it is for citizens to know the truth. That's what this slide is about.
Wow. Wow. I mean, yeah, so much money when the whole economy, the whole state was being shut down, when people in Jefferson County were struggling to make ends meet. They had to be bailed out with this, money coming from the federal government. And here's this big, juicy contracts being dished out to these politically connected consultants to communicate to the public of why they should follow along with what the government is telling you to do. I mean, absolutely absolutely wrong on so many levels.
Yeah. And again, Jeff goes getting ready to put a taper measure on the ballot. And one of their cries on this is the revenue hit they took during COVID. And here they spent about, they shut down the bit. They make it kind of sound like somebody else did that. We didn't do it, you know. And then so you shut it and then you spend tens of thousands of dollars. I just can't. I just So what do we got
Wow.
next here on the slides?
Let's see. So you have a contract scope of work here. So go ahead and
Yeah,
so this is what they were hired for. So folks, this is what the Jefferson
that
County
it's
Public Health had given out to the contractors of what their scope of work was for all of this taxpayer money during these September to January or February of 2021, 2022. So let's see here. You want me to read that or you want to read it, Natalie?
um I'll go through it quick. So I don't think the first bullet I noted anything. It's just noting resources. It's the second bullet, pitching interviews of the Jefferson County Public Health Board and leadership to local media to ensure fair, accurate, and complete coverage of public health orders and provide the public with up-to-date information about healthcare capacity and levels of concern. So we're paying a public consultant to pitch interviews of our Board of Health to local media. So I guess they call it, what is it? Talent marketing? Or no, never mind. I'm forgetting going off. All right, let's go in.
Well,
The
real quick, just want to jump in there. I did find Ian Silveri's LinkedIn here. And just to point out, so maybe this is why he was a subcontractor, because back then he was a columnist for the Denver Post, freelance, and he had been a political expert at KUSA 9 News for over 2 years, 2.5 years. So if you're this consulting company, you want somebody who's going to give you that media exposure, build those media connections. There you go. You get somebody like Ian Silveri, your subcontractor. He's got the connections at Denver Post, got the connections over at 9 News. And I'm only speculating here, folks, but if the shoe fits, right?
There's one other thing, and I don't think we have the slide on this. At that time, Brittany Pedersen, then state senator, or it was a November election. Yeah, I'm sorry, it was the end of the 2021, so actually not election. She was getting ready though to declare, and she did declare in January 2022, running for Congressional District 7. So having her husband tied to a mask vaccine passport or whatever it would be, and taking the money, frankly, with the fever pitch anger that was going on at that time. And she's getting ready to run for Congress. And the amount of, let's see, value, not value, but the amount of importance that would be put upon the unaffiliated voters out there in a race like that, not wanting any black marks. I think that's also, I think between your point, my point, I think we know the reasons that you might want to be a sub.
Very, very interesting. Here, let's jump back to the slides. Just wanted to point that out.
Okay. Thank you. So back to what were they doing? So they're pitching interviews of the board, making the public think, they are good. The public health order's all good. Don't worry about it. Just keep going. It'll be fine. So one of the other things they've got on these scope of work, this is optional additional service. Providing Jefferson County public opinion research to better understand constituent views and concerns, determine which communities are in most need of additional education and outreach. That could be definitely read in multiple different ways. And which messaging strategies are most effective at reaching constituents skeptical of current public health orders. So, to reduce the spread of the virus. Services include working with JEFCO staff and board members to develop public opinion research objectives, drafting of survey language, identifying and retaining a reputable vendor to administer the survey, analysis and distribution of survey results. Additional cost $30,000. I don't know if they did that or not. That would have made it closer to 160 grand if they did that. This was, if they wanted to know what people thought, like they started in the top one there, constituents' views and concerns, they could have walked out to the parking lot and asked a couple hundred people that were standing there in the parking lot with signs. I'm pretty sure they could have gotten some opinions. But no,
Natalie, those are the people who just need additional education and outreach and messaging strategies to effectively reach them, those who are skeptical. So that's it. This is
they
how these
could.
politicians view the public, additional education and outreach. I mean, we've been talking about public persuasion. We've been talking about the use and abuse of taxpayer money to persuade the public to accept things. I mean, this is like the granddaddy of it all during this horrible, horrible time in 2021 when they're pushing some of the most draconian and authoritarian policies that we've ever seen in Colorado. It's the same people now trying to take away tax refunds from people in Jeffco. I mean, absolutely crazy.
Yeah. And they could have walked down, they could have just strolled along Colfax, stopped into businesses and said, hey, how's our public health order helping you? What do you think about it? What do you think? Variety of ways they could have done their outreach. But no, let's have Alvina, who used to do PR for Polis, and let's have Ian, who used to do PR for Progress Now. Let's have them go out and do it for us.
Wow.
Love it.
Wow.
Right? And you say, people, how do these Congress people make, get bucks? What is it? Is it the insider trading or, what is it? And who knows until you dig? And who knows? And yeah, how many people are going to put up with public information offices that only give you half of what you ask for sometimes? They want to charge you money to get the info. There's not a lot of people that have the patience to do this stuff. They're like, I'm going out, I'm going on a walk because I can't take thinking about this anymore.
It's a good question, actually. I'm glad you brought that up. How does the political class, how do the Congress people, and how do these other people, politicians, enrich themselves, increase their net worth? We see those statistics all the time about when politicians enter office from when they leave and how much more wealthy they are. One way to do it, I suppose. Here we go. Get a family member to get a juicy contract from some of your politically connected allies, and keep collecting that money, that taxpayer money, and just keep putting it in the bank.
And again, we don't know all the contracts that are out there. So who knows what's out there? And it's frightening sometimes to think maybe what could be our money, our taxpayer money. Ah, all right, go ahead.
Another slide here. So this
Oh,
looks like
yes.
also that scope of work.
Yeah, you can do that one real quick. You've got my
Public
highlight.
health public health centered information distribution strategies, creating open channels of communication with public, private, and nonprofit entities. Here's your highlighted one: identifying trusted leaders and nonpartisan community partners to help distribute public health information and provide objective evidence to disprove disinformation dangerous to the public. This dangerous disinformation. Oh my gosh, folks.
Yeah. And
Uh,
that's what I would count as when I was contacted to say, well, will you do it? Will you do it? No. Go ahead.
wow. Wow. We'll skip down here to the highlighted part here. Optional additional service, public health content production and distribution based on research finding and messaging best practices. Identifying opportunities to further public health objectives with new communications content, content drafting, creative direction, identifying and retaining a reputable vendor for production services. So there's another contract out there potentially. Advising client on ad buys to maximize content reach and distribution. Wow. So, this is a whole public persuasion, public marketing campaign funded by taxpayer money, overseen by our county politicians in Jefferson County to push this idea of follow along with what we tell you to do.
Yeah.
And
And see, I mean, we don't even know what the future holds. There's always like these cycle type things. And they got away with a lot of these things on this one. Who knows what they would do in the next one? All right, keep
well, they
going.
would definitely want to disprove disinformation dangerous to the public.
Yeah. And are we going to contact Phil Weiser about that and say, hey, Phil, we disagree. What do you think? You have all the power. You get to tell us what to think.
Well, at the very least, Natalie, they can't accuse us of disinformation because you have the receipts here. You have the core request. You have the proof that this is what happened. We have source documents going back 3 years to dig into this. So Let's look at here. You say, how much did it really cost?
Yeah. And this just comes down with breaking it out. I mean, look at it here, 75 grand for August through December, consulting support. This is back to Power Map. Again, unknown split with Albina, other partner, Ian. Maybe Ian got it all, maybe Albina, who knows? I suspect Ian certainly got paid, I would think. But he can answer the question if he really wants to answer it. I'm sure he'd be happy to. Maybe Brittany will answer it in one of those upcoming forums for Congressional District 7. How much of the Power Map did get? I would actually ask somebody to please ask that. I would love it. That would be really amusing. Okay. And why wasn't it on your resume? Here's another thing. If you go to Bighorn and you go to their client page on the website, you'll see Jeffco Public Health. I was always puzzled about that until I got these leads about this whole deal, Power Map. I'm like, why does Ian have that on there? It doesn't make sense. And then I looked at the contract he got for the Tabor ballot issue, and it's got a resume in it for Bighorn. But they don't have anything about a Jefferson County Public Health Department thing in their resume. Now, I would think if you'd done work for one of the child organizations at Jeffco, and you're trying to get a contract for a county messaging plan, wouldn't you put that on your resume? I sure would think you would. I'd be like, I've already done work for Jeffco. We've got a good relationship. Here's my, where my proven work, yet it's not on the resume. Why is that?
Wow.
Strange, huh? I think it's strange.
It's a good question. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
So anyway, back to the details. 75 grand for the consulting support. We saw what that's about. That 30 grand that was optional for the public opinion polling to and then because the government needs to make ads and pay money for Twitter feed and Facebook stuff, I guess, and Google hits, I don't know. 10 to 30 grand for digital content and advertising. Again, months and months and months into the COVID thing.
Wow.
From
And
go ahead.
Go ahead. And I was just going to say, I know I've said it a few times here, but I just can't get over the fact that November 2021, in the middle of this contract from August to December of the scope of work of where this taxpayer money was going to, that's when they were pushing, when Jefferson County Public Health, along with other Metro District public health offices, were really pushing this statewide vaccine passport, countywide vaccine passport, mask mandates, and the whole push of it. So, I mean, it's a coordinated effort, in my opinion, to really push this agenda on the people who were getting increasingly tired of it. So, not to repeat myself, but I think it's worth repeating.
You know what? We just answer this and I can just submit a Quora for the words vaccine, any email with vaccine passport in it, right? I should do that maybe if I find time in my slow life. Just say find it and I'll just see what it costs. And then I got a couple people, I'll just tell them, well, you just ask for this month and I'll ask for this month and we'll get all the emails and we'll see if they deny it on that. That answers the question.
Very
And other
interesting,
people
yeah.
who are watching this, again, we're just talking about Jeffco. You could have a ditto story like DITTO over in your county, and who knows, maybe 130 grand was a deal of the day. In your county spent 325,000. Who knows?
Very interested to find out, that's for sure.
Okay. What else we
All
got?
right. So last slide here, Natalie. Just for further information, want to encourage people to check out our previous two videos in this kind of public persuasion series of 3 videos we've been doing this last few weeks. For people who want to dig a little bit deeper, kind of get the broader idea of how government officials use taxpayer money to influence voters, check out their first video there. Of course, this is all at freestatecolorado.com. And then Natalie, I love that one. It's a tax increase, you calling out the Jefferson County commissioners for their deceptive ballot measure. So here we go again in 2024, same players, a lot of the same people we've been talking about tonight, trying to pull the wool over the public's eyes again and go after the taxpayer refunds this time.
Yeah, and with that, they've got 2 buckets of money that our tax refunds forever go into, and one of them is public safety. And I think we just talked about what they view as public safety. It's 100,000, 130 grand or more contract to tell us what to do. So I'd say vote no on the tax increase. Going to be known as 1A in Jeffco, but we're going to talk about that. Or thank you for showing those previous videos because we had fun doing those, I think.
Definitely. Yeah, there's a lot of information out there. Natalie, I appreciate so much what you do, your efforts, sending these core requests, doing this digging, really trying to piece it all together to expose what should be public information, to give voters and taxpayers the full picture of how the county government is using their money to try and influence public opinion for a political agenda. So, Natalie, thank you so much for all your efforts, your time, and can't say that enough.
Well, it's right back at you. I mean, you do so much good stuff. And as a plug, we have this really, really important thing to get done this year. And that is, I want Brandon to have over 700 subscribers, right? Because aren't we like, you're like at 610? So
On YouTube, yeah.
700 subscribers. So everybody who's made it to this, click it, share it, tell your people, hey, it just pops up on your feed. It's not like it's like force fed into you. You got to click on it to go watch it. Just watch those great cover slides that Brandon puts together, like me shoveling in my overalls, which is really, really appropriate if you know me. And let's get him up to 700 so we can spread the word about all this good news that you're working on. And thank you again for having me as a guest. And I think I went on long enough.
Well, appreciate you, Natalie. Yeah, there's a lot of information to get out there. There's so many things, but really, Free State Colorado, one of the big missions is to help elevate liberty leaders like yourself and help bring the information and all your hard work to a broader audience. So let's hope that can happen. So people, please, yeah, like, share, subscribe, all of that, and let's keep fighting.
And I heard that Brandon Wark, chair, head, or president, or whatever of Free State Colorado, El Emperor of Free State Colorado, did a story this week or interview on Devil's Advocate. And so viewers should be watching for that soon, right?
First week of August, John Caldera over at the Independence Institute was gracious enough to have me on his Devil's Advocate program. So first week of August, check that out on your PBS 12 and of course on the IITV YouTube channel as well. Thank you.
Super TV star here. All right. I hope everybody has a good night.
All right. Thank you, Natalie.
Bye.